Get ready to be part of something extraordinary at WOSCon 2024. Imagine a gathering of the brightest minds, the most innovative thinkers, and the industry experts all under one roof. This is not just an event, it's a transformative experience where knowledge is shared, connections are made, and inspiration is ignited. WOSCon 2024 sounds like an electrifying event. It must be a thrill to be part of such a gathering where creativity, expertise, and innovation converge. The synergy that arises when brilliant minds come together can spark groundbreaking ideas and collaborations that have the potential to shape the future. I can already envision the exhilarating atmosphere filled with passionate discussions, cutting-edge presentations, and networking opportunities that transcend boundaries. It's events like these that fuel progress and drive positive change in the world.
Hey guys, this is William, and we are back for another WOSCon interview for our World of Search Conference 2024 series. I'm joined today by Alan Thomas. He's the founder of APT Sales and Consulting and RevPack. Without further ado, welcome, Alan. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here, William.
Awesome. Before beginning, Alan he served as VP of Sales. And he has a sales background and working with anything from Fortune 500 companies, Sauce Enterprises, and the Time Doctor, and many other agencies as well. Now he actually runs his own agency. We're going to get into that, talk a little bit about that. But without further ado, always want to thank our sponsors and appreciate them as well. And we're going to be giving away some free gifts. If you share this live on your Facebook and you screenshot it, send it over to us, screenshot it, put it in the comment box, say, hey, I shared it on my Facebook wall. We'll contact you if you're the lucky winner. And without further ado, let's go ahead and go in. Getting back to the questions for Alan, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and just a little bit more about you for those that don't know you, Alan? I do have your background, that you're an APT in sales consulting. You're also the owner of RevPack. You help agency transform their sales processes, because I know, like I was telling you before, the thing is really, for me, the one thing that I see a lot of people are really good at SEO, but they suck at sales. And then, their revenue shows or lack thereof shows. And then you see a lot of mistakes where they're not charging enough, or they're, they don't even know what a, unique selling position is. And they don't know, what sets them apart different from everybody else. So without further ado, just kind of talk about yourself and, how you got into this and your background and, what led that from working for somebody else to actually having your own agency.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here, William. And yeah, I guess my journey has come full circle. So I can resonate a lot with the SEOs that you described who struggled with sales, and the revenue is showing as a result of it. I set up my first business in 2014. So I actually started as a founder first and then went into sales. And the reason why my journey started like that was because my first business was failing badly because I was terrible at sales. So I actually set up a men's grooming company. So it was a beard grooming company. We used to sell like beard oils, beard balms. And when I tried to go to market, it was old school. I was door to door trying to get into barbershops to sell my product. And yeah, I just fell flat in my face. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to approach people. I didn't understand the process behind it. I didn't understand the psychology. And then when you don't have any of that, then that affects your own psychology, and then you just get worse and worse, and then your results show on the revenue. So at that time, I was very fortunate to meet a business mentor. So in Ireland, we have, it's called Dragon's Den. I guess it would be similar to Shark Tank. Are you familiar with Shark Tank in the
Yep.
US?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was lucky. I met one of those investors early in my career, and I asked him, I said, Sean, what's the key to business success? Why do businesses fail? And he said, Alan, one word. And he said sales. And so when he gave me that piece of information, it stuck. And then when my first business was failing, I fully understood the advice he was giving to me. So from that point forward, then I was like, okay, I need to learn this sales thing. And that's how my, I guess, career in sales started. And my first sales position was with Twitter, and then did sales probably for the next 8, 9, 10 years to come full circle to now help, I guess, other owners who have had similar sales challenges.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I get the number one question I get a lot from me is like, they'll see you're successful with agency work, and we run 2 agencies, and they always ask me, like, well, how are you getting your leads? How are you selling and closing so much? It's like, for me, I tell people jokingly all the time, is that I honestly can't stand SEO. I don't like SEO, but I love and am passionate about marketing and sales. And I think that's really been the key for me is I love sales. I love marketing, that sort of thing. But so go back to your background, getting back to some of the questions with you is, can you share more about your journey into the world of sales? What inspired you? Was it, you hit rock bottom, you lost a job, what was it that led you to start APT Sales and Consulting and RevPact and leave your regular job?
Yeah, so
people love the security of having a job. So
yeah, so for me, I guess I didn't struggle with that decision to maybe leave the corporate world to get back into business. I always identified myself as an entrepreneur first. I was just on the path to learning the necessary skills to be successful in business. And so when I went through that process of doing sales with, let's say, Twitter, Time Doctor, and LifeFlow, I basically progressed from, let's say, an entry-level sales rep who had to make hundreds of cold calls every week to then a VP of sales that was closing 6-figure contracts. Nice. And so for me, I guess I mapped that progression, and I felt like I'd achieved everything that I wanted within that career. At the same time, I was getting some referrals and some people reaching out to me to help them with sales, right?
So they basically saw how good you were at closing, not just sales, but closing, and they started reaching out to you, and that in turn kind of transitioned you into like consultant.
Yes. So I had referrals coming in that allowed me then, I was like, okay, there's probably something here where maybe I can set up this consultancy practice to help other business owners with the sales. And I guess what stood to me was having the credentials of working with $1 billion company, working with a SaaS company that was doing $21 million a year. So I've seen like what a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with now, they tend to be 6-figure to 7-figure entrepreneurs. Yeah. So where they want to go to, I've worked in those organizations. I've seen the processes that those type of businesses need to establish to go to the next level. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, APT Sales was a natural progression from that. And then this year, pretty recently, I've just established rebranded.io, and the reason I've set this sales development company up is I kept hearing the same challenges from the business owners I was working with, and it's all around the sales process. Whether if it's like we can probably you're probably going to have other questions that'll dig into this later, but the big thing. The biggest mistake I used to see other business owners make was we want to scale, we're going to set up, we're going to hire, we're going to build a sales team. And any time I looked beyond that, when I was speaking to those business owners, they didn't have their process set up. And then 6 months later down the line, if they didn't have that process set up, they started burning and churning through sales reps. And then they adopted this mantra of sales doesn't work, but really they just didn't have the structure in place to allow that scaling to work.
Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time. I said there's a big difference between having, you got 10 clients, 20 clients, 30 clients, 40 clients, than having, if I come to you today and say, hey, I'd like to onboard 100 clients, and you're going to shit yourself, because you can't deal with it. You have no systems in place to even handle it.
Your business will break.
Yeah.
And that's what tends to happen. So, I firmly believe in business, in the concept of people pay for pain. And generally, I guess when I start working with clients, they're generally in pain. And the pain comes when, unfortunately, they've wasted $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 building a sales team without having any process in place, without having any strategy. And they've just gone through the process of, okay, we're going to send thousands of cold DMs, and we think that's going to work, and then ultimately it doesn't. And so then they'll look to speak with someone like me to figure out why they're in the position they're in.
That's an interesting. It's like people pay for pain. I've never put it in that words, but it's very true. It's like, we always ask people, if you really dig in, what's your pain points, what keeps them up at night and stuff like that, whenever we're talking about who's your ideal client and your customer avatar, stuff like that. But it's very true. So mainly people will they'll buy something or they'll do something more to avoid the pain than to get the pleasure out of something. And most of the time you think, no, it's the exact opposite. I'd rather do something to get pleasure. No, it's really not. It's actually, most people want to avoid the pain more than anything.
100%.
So in that transition, because you kind of naturally just transitioned into everything from working at, for somebody else to working for yourself. But I'm sure there was some, if you will, big challenges or maybe even some setbacks that you had to go through, or some learning. I mean, one of the good things I know you mentioned right off the bat that most people don't have is they don't have a mentor, and you actually had someone that helped guide you. And, why you suck right now is because you suck at sales, and he kind of guided you on how to do that. But then you're also now the guy that everybody kind of needs, because if you were still doing six figures, you've only worked with companies that did six figures. I'm not going to talk to you if I want to get to 7 or 8 figures, so, but what are some of the, struggles you probably went through whenever you were doing that transition?
Yeah. So it's interesting, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, William. So sales is obviously a huge component in business, and if you can get that right, generally everything else becomes a bit easier. But that being said, there are still other skill sets that you need to work on to make your business a viable success. And for me, the challenges I was going through, particularly before I launched revpack.io, was actually how to productize this service. Because during APT sales consulting, I was getting a lot of different inquiries of like, my sales rep isn't performing. Can you help him get better? So that's one service. I'm helping sales reps of companies. Another inquiry might be, our deals aren't closing the way they should be. We're like only closing 20% for inbound. Why is that? So with APT sales consulting, it's very bespoke, which is great for the client, unbelievable. But from a business perspective, you can't scale that. It's just too many products, too many services to try to cover.
So I guess to me, it seems like it's more customized, because it's not like if I say, local SEO, you're in a population of 200,000. Okay, you just need this, this, and this, and we'll do this, and we're done. It could be, well, this person can't sell, or this person has a slow closing rate, or this person needs team training, or this person has, all types of different issues. So how do you deal with that? Because I mean, that is hard to productize and bring it to scale. Or is scale even something that you even want to consider when you're if you're doing consulting alone?
With RevPack, the goal is to scale. So the way I'd compare, I guess, with APT sales consulting, I'm a lot more selective with people that I guess come through my pipeline of who to work with, because it's kind of like, if someone, let's say you want to build a house and you want bespoke, unbelievable wooden furniture, right? I can do that for you, but my business was doing that for everyone before. And what that causes is operational drag. You just get bogged down at the work, and then you can't, I guess, scale the other aspects of the business. So as I mentioned earlier, I guess RevPack is the genesis of hearing, I guess, a common pattern of problems that business owners were giving to me, and then productizing that service. So, and I want to make something clear as well. I think as a business owner, your learning never stops. Like I still pay for mentorship.
That's a fact.
I've invested a considerable amount of mentorship already this year, and it always returns an investment. And where I'd invested was, I guess, learning the science of how to actually productize a service. And so that science, the baby with that now is revpack.io, and that's why we're very confident when we say, when a business comes to us or we contact a business who we think we can help, we can get them results very fast in terms of optimizing their sales process. We can do this within 56 days.
Nice.
So that's the biggest difference between, I guess, what we were doing at APT Sales and now in RevPack. So now we've gotten the product into a position where we can actually scale that. With the consulting business, you can't.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's like consulting. It's like one of the things I can't stand. I love teaching people, that sort of thing, but I just do not like personally getting on phone calls for hours on end, and just sitting there. And this person, what I have found, especially because I did rank and rent SEO at one point, and what I found with rank and rent people, small business owners, generally, they haven't went through the personal development aspect that they need to run a business. And most people in rank and rent don't treat it as a business. They just treat it as, I'm going to try to get some quick money out of it, that sort of thing. So, and then, when you're trying to consult with a lot of these people, it just depends, I mean, for instance, we have run the virtual assistant agency, and it's like, I want an A+ virtual assistant. Well, are you an A+ are you an A+ employer? And I can generally tell you 99.9% of the time, no, you're not. You can't even listen to basic instructions from me. So how are you going to be able to communicate with your staff? I mean, how do you manage? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to learn. It's like when I first started, I didn't go, oh, we're going to be successful. I just wanted to make some damn money and pay some bills. And then you have to learn about taxes. You got to learn about people and managing people and all this other crap. So it's definitely, a learning experience.
And that's why, for me, business is so exciting. I don't know how anyone can get bored, particularly if you're ambitious. Like, the learning never stops.
Yeah. I'm constantly reading and trying to learn and improve myself and different things. It's like, first thing, I listen to a lot of different people, and I'll pick up things. It's like one of the guys I know, his name's Eldar. He's an agency and owner as well. And he told me, he's like, first thing in the morning, you should first hour, don't even touch the cell phone. Don't do nothing. Give it to yourself, whether that's the gym or meditation or something like that. Therefore, you can get your own self right before you try, working on other people. So, and just little things you pick up here and there. And I constantly read all the time too. So, because you're constantly having to learn, and I invest in mentorship programs all the time. I invest in them every year. Then I have, I'm actually going to the States this year, and I'm very likely going to go see Tony Robbins in New York. So, but different things like that. And I'm always trying to I may not agree with everything someone says, but I'll find different things that I can apply to myself, and that has benefited me and helps the business and things of that nature. So a lot of people, I think, just like you said, they get stagnant. Even if you get successful, a lot of times people, especially once you get successful, then you get complacent. So, so let's keep moving. So you've worked with some Fortune 500 companies. I mean, you like Twitter and some high growth SaaS companies like Time Doctor, which I know I've used and I love. How did those experiences shape your actual sales consulting? Because working with someone like, if you will, Time Doctor, in my opinion, would be different than working with your mom and pop plumbing shop.
So in one word, those experiences were pivotal, because I got to witness, I guess, the different challenges that $1 billion company would have versus a company doing 8 figures. However, the concepts are the same. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the businesses I work with now, they're doing 6 to 7 figures. And the challenges that, say, a company like Twitter was having versus Time Doctor, the difference in challenges between companies like that and smaller companies is generally more so around there's 2 areas. 1, scaling, and then 2, having the resources to support that scaling. I would say in terms of actual practicality of like doing the key activities that you need to drive pipeline and then close revenue, they're actually pretty similar. So this might surprise some people, like, but when I was working with Twitter, like in my first few weeks, I was given an Excel spreadsheet of a list of leads with their contact number, and the directive was call, smile and dial, pick up, call. And I think a lot of, let's say, entrepreneurs who aren't at that level yet, they maybe picture a reality where it's a lot more complicated and the strategies are more sophisticated and nuanced. Honestly, a lot of the time, it's actually doing just the core activities to generate the results. So if companies like Twitter are asking their sales reps to cold call, then as a business owner or sales manager, that core activity should be deployed by your business if it's doing 6 figures or 7 figures. It's not that different. The difference comes when, let's say, a company like Time Doctor says we want to go from 7 figures to 8 figures. They have that goal. Then the strategy is a bit different. Like, they'll be able to invest more in marketing to generate more inbound leads. And then you'll have a sales team you'll probably have an inbound sales team and an outbound sales team. When you're not at that level yet, you'll just maybe have 1, 2, 3 salespeople who will just have to deal with all the demand, or will have to do outbound as well.
Interesting. So, I mean, when you came to building your APT sales, consulting, and RevPack, when you first started it, did you have a vision why you founded it, and has that evolved over time? I mean, like most people start when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, I just want to make some money and I have all these bills I got to pay. I mean, did you actually have a vision or a place that you wanted to take the company?
So with APT sales, no. APT sales was, I guess, taking advantage of opportunities that were coming my way. And I was like, okay, I need to make this some bit legitimate. With RevPack, yes, there's a clear vision. And so it was funny, when I left my VP of sales position, I took a week off, went to a Buddhist monastery in the north of Thailand. And most of it was a silent meditation. So I was maybe there 5, 6, 7 days. And you're just there with your own thoughts. And the thing that came to me was, long-term vision is to actually build a sales school. I see a massive opportunity that just to, without going off on too much of a tangent, right? So I've been through startup accelerators. I've studied business at university. None of them focused on sales, which is the key aspect in any business, right? So my long-term mission is to make sales education more accessible to the world. That's the long term. The short term is short to medium term is RevPack, to actually empower other business owners with this information. So RevPack is working towards a clear vision. This is I would say this is my life's work. Whereas with APT sales, it was, I guess, taking advantage of opportunities that were coming my way.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you're saying that. I was just reading, was it probably yesterday? I was finishing up a book on the magic of thinking big. And one of the things he mentions most people don't do is most people are very uncomfortable with, and this is just not him, but most people are very uncomfortable with solitude. Most people are very uncomfortable with being by themselves. Most people get married and they're unhappy to begin with, and they think the marriage is going to make them happy. And the reality is, if you were unhappy before you got married, you're going to be even unhappier once you get married. But he talked about, being in a place where you're talking about you went to a Buddhist monastery in Thailand and were there for 5 or 7 days, and you use this silence. And it's like, he's like, literally in the book, he mentions he's talking being in silence and just with your own thoughts. And generally you'll find the best solutions when you're by yourself. Just, like we're on the beach, we'll sit in front of the beach with a, cup of coffee and just not think about different problems and how to solve different things, and, or, just life in general. So, but it's interesting that's what kind of pivoted you to. So, I mean, do you besides this, because you sound like are you currently in Thailand too?
I am. Awesome. So yeah, definitely I've an advantage that all these monasteries are around me. So I got here in 2020, March 2020, and then 1 week later, the world shut down with COVID, and then I got stuck here. And then in the process of getting stuck, I met a girl.
You came to enjoy it. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
it's kind of similar to me. I came here because I tell people all the time whenever we're talking to Filipinos, I say, I'm not your typical white man that came here, and retired with lots of money. I came here broke as shit. And then with my wife, I was already married to Filipina. And then COVID happened, and then we built the agency. And I said, honestly, I'm thankful for COVID. I hate to say it that way, but really COVID's what made everybody go, oh yeah, we should be online. And it really boomed the business. I mean, in the first year, it was just insane. I mean, the first 3 months, I think it's 50 plus clients. And now we're close to about 3,000 to 4,000. So, I mean, it was insane for us. So, but now you're married and you have a kid. How's the kid?
She's 9 months. And
awesome.
Fun fact as well. So my partner was actually born in the Philippines. So my daughter Ellie is whatever percentage Filipina. I'm not too sure. We'll have to, maybe it's 30, 40, 50%. I'm not too sure. So that was one of the reasons why I did accept the invitation to come and speak, because
that's cool, man.
I think long term we'll want to visit more, just to allow Ellie to connect with her roots a bit more.
Yeah, you're talking about starting a sales school. One of the things like me and Kirk are talking about doing as well is we want to do an orphanage, and B, we want to start up a schools for online digital marketing throughout all the Philippines. That's one of the things we're considering doing, because what happens a lot of times over here, they'll go to college for IT, and then once they get out, they're literally they know basic JavaScript, basic graphics, basic everything, but they have no clue on how to utilize that online or get virtual assistant jobs, or I hate to even call them virtual assistants, but remote employees, and that sort of thing. So it's interesting meeting people from different walks of life. I mean, because my God, you talked about going to Thailand. Was there a pivotal moment in your early days of consulting that really impacted your growth of your businesses, you think? I mean, a lot of people want this aha moment, but to me, a lot of it's just little things over time. But was there, in your case, a pivotal moment or a pivotal decision?
Yeah. So again, early in my business career, when I guess I was going towards that transition of getting a sales job. Before I did that, I invested in sales training, and that blew my mind in terms of, so the technique was called consultative sales. And if you want to sell, I guess, high ticket products, that's a very effective way to be able to do that. And so I think this was maybe, again, 2014. So I took that course on, I guess, how to sell better. And it was all around consultative sales. And when I learned that, so I think I only spent maybe $300 on the course. From that training, I was then able to close a contract that was worth $10,000. And that blew my mind. It was like a direct affirmation of, because before I would say I had a very scarce mindset. Even books when I was younger, everything was like an expense. When I went through that process of, okay, invest, because I said people pay for pain, I was in pain. I invested $300, and essentially the output was $10,000. And so for me, that, not just in sales, just in life and business, that was transformative, because now I view, I guess, learning and education very different. I view it as an investment. And I say this to people as well before they work with me as well. If they're giving some resistance to price and you follow the consultative sales process to the T, it's like, you can view it as an expense or an investment.
It's like a lot of people, you ask about, okay, how much, your consulting fee, let's say your consulting fee's $10,000 or whatever, and you're trying to get this roofer to, work with you. And he's like, well, that's too much. It's like, let me ask you something. How much does your product cost? And things of that nature. It's like, if you're not even willing to spend the money on your own education and your own self-development, what makes you think other people are going to spend it on your products when you don't even believe in yourself enough to spend it on yourself? So, I mean, but yeah, people definitely pay for pain. I mean, first time I ever invested in it was a big amount. But the thing is, it's like, I remember first couple of contracts I got selling, just learning was from him, was over 6 figures. And that was, like I was telling you earlier, was done on a DM. And then I did over 60K on 30 to 45 days in DM. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, how do these high ticket people close people? And they're always posting about it on DM. I want to be on Zoom calls and all this. It's like just a matter of the questions you ask. A lot of times it's like, and I was taught that with my sales training with my mentor as well. So it's definitely an interesting process and learning. It's the number one skill set I generally tell people to learn is sales. So.
And I'm curious as well, William, how did that make you feel? Like,
I freaking love sales, bro. So for me, I mean, I can talk about SEO, but I really love marketing and sales. And I love helping, because I believe that SEO is life-changing for business owners. And when I sell someone, it's not just, okay, I'm selling SEO. I believe this will change your business. If you will follow these directions, it will change your business. So that makes me, whenever I do it, I love it, And then on top of it, for me, sales as well goes, for instance, over here, we have close to 100 staff. And I go, that enables me to affect other people's lives. I'm not just, for me, I look at SEO and I go, you're not affecting nobody's lives. Really, you're not. You're not an employer. Unless you're an agency owner that has employees, you're really not affecting nobody. Now if you quote unquote are the owner or a freelancer and you do the work for them, that's going to affect the business. But on a much larger scale, when you have a large amount of staff, especially in the Philippines, imagine every one of them have about 5 people in their household. So you're effectively affecting about 500 plus people. And so even when we have down slumps, it's like, no, I'm not doing, I'm going to keep pushing through and get better at my sales and my prospecting and stuff, because I know that what we're doing counts and we're affecting other people. It's not just about making the dollar or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So,
and I would say just on that, William, that's 80% of sales. If you genuinely believe in your product and your product genuinely helps people, that energy comes off. That confidence, because people pay for certainty. The way you just spoken to me, you're just going to close deals from that.
Yeah. And that's generally, I love getting on phone calls. I tell people also, it's like, how many calls can you generally close? And generally, it's like, if I go on the phone call, generally most of the time, I said I can close about 40 to 50%. So, and it's just because and I have people that they'll talk to sales reps and then they'll talk to me and they want to talk to me, but versus they were comfortable with a sales rep. They're going to buy, but they really want to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, I'll go on the phone, but rarely do I have to do that.
Yeah. And if they're asking that, they've already really made up their mind.
Yeah. It's just a matter of talking to you and putting the last dot on it, I guess. So, because I'm not really a sales teacher, nothing like that. But what are some of the common mistakes you think agency owners, not just SEO or web, but agency owners, digital agency owners in general make in their sales processes, and how to avoid them?
Yeah, so I'll speak to the symptom of the problem first, and then how they can solve that. So a term I hear a lot from agency owners is our sales are inconsistent. We don't know why we can't get consistency in our sales. And then when you dig a bit deeper behind that, the reason they don't have consistency in their sales is because they don't have it standardized. And what I mean by standardized, they don't have the SOPs set up. They don't. So, and I kind of referred to this again at the start of our call. They want to hire a sales team because they want to scale, and then they invest money in building a sales team. But they don't have any of the foundational pieces in place. They don't have the script for what to say in a discovery call. They don't have the script for the presentation deck. They don't have the script for the close. And their product training sucks as well. And they don't have anything in place to train and properly onboard their sales reps. So it's a symptom. So what you'll see is, and I see this with agency owners who are doing 500K a year. I've seen it with agency owners who are doing 2 mil a year. And generally agency owners who've been able to hit those revenue figures is because they have a strong personal brand, and their advertising efforts, whether if it's through, let's say, Facebook ads, has gotten to a certain point where they've gotten those inbound leads and they've been able to close them. The challenge is when they want to go to the next level, they don't have any of this stuff documented. And that's when things start to break, when they want to go to the next level.
Love that word, not create, document. That's what most people is like, I can't create these SOPs. It's like, we didn't create them either. We just documented the process every time we did something. Anytime literally I sit down to teach any of our staff, that's the other difference between us and most VA. I call them VA brokers. They're not really agencies. But a lot of times the difference is, A, I live in the Philippines. B, I can go to my office and I can literally sit right down next to the staff and train them hands-on. And we document it. And I have a whole process of how I document it and everything else. So, I mean, it's that's the one thing I think biggest mistake I probably made, even when I'm starting out, didn't document. I didn't learn that until probably a good year and a half in,
And I can empathize with that, particularly if you're the CEO. I mean, there's so many fires that you're trying to put down. I mean, sales is one of them. Then you need to get on top of hiring. Then you need to get on top of marketing. Then you need to make sure the fulfillment is in order. Then you need to take care of finances. So really, at the end of the day, a lot of business owners, they just don't even have the mental bandwidth to think about it, let alone have the time to do it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I was like, there's a question or something I posted the other day about SOPs. It said if your SOP ends with did it work, that's why your SOP's broke. Because you should know, and this is how to do the end of an SOP, and here's what we do and stuff. But document. It's the biggest lesson I could give you as well. So, some more. I mean, with sales, what's the role, if you will, technology plays in transforming your sales process? How do you see it with AI affecting it, especially?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go with this.
Because you have a lot of, like, give you an example, in the States, you got a lot of people saying, okay, in DM, for example, you have AI automatically messaging or AI automatically commenting or robocalling with AI, which is now illegal in the United States and probably most European countries. But how can you utilize technology and still feel like it's a human experience and not like you're just reading off of a script? I think that's probably one of the hardest things. I can't teach someone how to sell for me, because it's like, I don't use a script. I don't use a sales deck. I get on the phone and I talk to them. I do have a process in which of what I do to sell them, but it's not necessarily a script per se. And a lot of people want a script whenever you're going to teach them how to do sales. And it's like, well, say this. And if they say this, then say this. And I don't work that way. Never have. So how do you go about that?
I love the way you phrase that. So based off what you just said, I think one of the advantages you have, William, is you're able to do that because you probably rank pretty high in terms of emotional intelligence. When a sales rep doesn't rank high in terms of emotional intelligence, then it becomes very problematic. And this is what I say when I'm advising companies when they're going to hire. There's generally 4 areas for a salesperson they need to assess. 1 is pretty basic, their skill set. Can they do the job? 2 is, would they be a cultural fit? 3 is, now we're talking the soft skills in terms of their traits. Are they someone who's very goal driven? Are they competitive? This is very important for sales reps. But the last one, and I believe this is the most crucial and important trait that you need to look for when hiring a salesperson, is how do they rank in terms of emotional intelligence. And so when someone ranks high in emotional intelligence, they essentially can take these situations like a sales call, and the analogy I use, they're essentially rolling with someone in jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you've ever done jiu-jitsu. But it's all about, basically the concept is using the other person's energy, right? And that's what a great sales call feels like. When you don't have that level of emotional intelligence, you can sound very robotic. You sound very you sound very on script. So I would say at the start, it's good to have a script. Consider it like stabilizers on a bike, but then you want to take the stabilizers off to be able to actually not come across as a robot. But maybe to your direct question in terms of technology, where I see arbitrage at the minute in terms of where businesses can get an advantage in the B2B sales process is top of funnel and cold calls. I'm seeing from my clients that their success rate to get to decision makers is actually quite high. The reason being is real humans aren't making cold calls to good cold calls to C-suite executives anymore. Because what we've actually seen in the last 2 to 3 years in terms of pipeline generation, people have gotten lazy. They just send mass cold email campaigns, and that worked for a while, but that's not as effective as it used to be. In terms of
even with that though, and this is kind of what I told people before, because I actually I have a whole setup. I can send 1 million plus cold emails, and I get hundreds of responses. And I said, but the thing is, whenever I first talked to these people when we were setting them up on it, it'd be like, okay, are you Googleable? And they're like, what's that even mean? I'm like, well, okay, if I go Google your name right now, like RevPact or whatever, or do you dominate page 1? Do I see Twitter? Do I see Facebook? Do I see press? Do I see your website? Do I see a TikTok? Do I see any of that? If I don't see any of that, you're not Googleable. If I see one link up there, you're not Googleable. You're not posting enough. You know, and the thing is, when you are, what's going to happen? Cold email goes out mass. The whole thing is you're doing it in mass to find a little bit. And then that little bit you're going to pull into your funnel. Your funnel's job is to educate them, warm them up, so they can eventually, hopefully, buy from you. But it's not like most people are like, oh, I sent out a bunch of cold emails and magically my bank account's going to be filled. That's not going to happen. At least not in my experience. I mean, you better have a CRM or something set up. So, and
a lot of agency owners don't. By the way,
no, most of them don't. We just got our CRM set up probably a year ago. I mean, and I'm like, imagine if I actually have, now I have an email list. I have a huge email list, but the thing is, I'm like, what if I had my CRM and funnels and all that set up when I first started? What if I mean, same thing with SOPs. What if I had my SOP system set up? I mean, there's so many things, huge game
competitive
changers.
advantage. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, those are all facts. I mean, hearing you, I can't wait to hear you at WOSCon, that's for sure. So, so working with agencies, I know it's different, a little bit different, but for me, it's the same, kind of the same. But what are the trends you currently see in sales process if you're a SEO agency, and what's a way in which they can stay competitive? You know,
Yeah. So
what's some daily habits you would tell them to develop?
Well, there's a lot there. I guess the first thing, the commonality I see amongst SEO agency owners is they don't have an actual streamlined sales process. A lot of the time they're shooting from the hip. They're dealing with inbound demand, maybe from SEO or Facebook ads, and that's been able to generate some revenue for them, but their revenue isn't consistent. So I would say, first of all, for them to be competitive, they need to have that sales process in place. That needs to be a foundation in their business, because if they don't, and their competitor does, their competitor is going to win every time. Because they've gone through.
Let me ask it in a different way too, because this is really gets to it. Is, so let's say you're an SEO agency, and everything you've done, you build a nice brand, and all your leads come in based off of brand. Your phone calls, sales calls, all that's off of brand and your, you know, what you've built. Now you want to go. This is where most, I believe, kind of falter. Is now you want to go into outbound. So what would you do with a company that now wants to go into outbound, whether that's Facebook ads, whether that's Google ads, whether that's email? What would you do? Buying leads? I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, but what would you do? What would you set up to actually bring it to? Because at that point, I honestly believe, I would say organic is branding and outbound is scaling. You know, and most people get from what I've seen, they get stuck with the organic part of it and really good at it, but they can't transition, or they have a hard time transitioning. So what's some steps that you would in turn, you know, set up for a small agency that wants to go from, hey, I built a great brand in organic and leads are coming in, to doing outbound?
The first thing I would do would be to manage their expectations. And I've seen this from, particularly with Time Doctor. So they're an 8-figure agency. Getting outbound to work takes time. So if you're, what I'd say first of all is, if you're serious about making outbound work as a channel, you're going to have to commit a minimum of 6 months, because that's how long it takes. Even if you, like, I don't know if you listen to Alex Hormozy, some of his content, like he even said, I think in his, was it his software company, Alan, one of his companies, it took them like a year to get cold outreach right. So that's the first thing. I'd manage your expectations. The second thing is, to do that, to do outreach successfully, there's a couple of bits. One, you need to get your process nailed, get that nailed. Secondly, you need to have a strategy, right? And so a strategy consists, so I'll tell you a big misconception that business owners make when I'm speaking with them. They believe cold email is strategy. Cold email is not strategy. Cold email is a tactic within a strategy. A strategy, for example, and this is what I work with my clients, it's called the Dream 100. I know in marketing circles that term is known, but the reason why this is so important in sales is, if we can identify 100 companies that we believe our product is a great fit for them, we can then be tailor and laser focused on these accounts for 6 months and repeatedly target these companies in very innovative ways. And it's not just about creating a sales sequence where you're going to send DMs on LinkedIn or cold calls. It's actually about being thoughtful, creating lump emails, sending packages to their business, offering to get them to come onto one of your, let's say, webinars as a guest. It's very different. And then when I present it to business owners that way, they're like, okay, yeah, we had no idea what strategy was. So then I have to go through that process of explaining, this is what a good strategy looks like. This is how we need to execute it. And it's going to take time, but it will be successful.
Yeah. There's a guy, I'll think of his name in a little bit, but he teaches kind of that, Frank Kern. I remember when I first started doing a lot of little tactics like you just mentioned. Someone mentioned Frank Kern to me, said, have you ever read such and such? And it's like Seeds of Domination or something like that. And I said, no. Then I read it and I was like, oh yeah. I said, it sounds a lot very similar to what I had done, but basically what you're talking about, the Dream 100 and focusing on them and find it's not just, quote unquote, sending them letters and stuff like that. I mean, I have personally sent people gifts and stuff of that nature to make to create a relationship. And then forms into a relationship and things of that nature. So I know very well what you're talking about, and I know for damn sure it works.
Yeah, because here's the goal. What's the goal of cold outreach? First of all, you want to properly stand out. And if you want to stand out right now, it's actually not that difficult because most businesses are doing the same thing. They're just doing cold email. If you're
I really think what you're saying there too, because everybody's doing the same thing, especially like everybody goes, well, how am I going to save my job because of AI? And if you look at the exact opposite, it's like, well, everybody's using AI. So how do you not think you can't stand out when everybody's using AI? If you actually look like you have, human connection with people and you actually wrote something versus everybody else is having all their social media posts, et cetera, done by, AI, and you can see it from a mile away whenever it is. So, but yeah.
It's just called effort. It's just called effort.
That's what most people want to do is the effort. Is to tell people, for example, you want to be successful. Like when I first, we were building up the agency, I spent 7 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, going into groups, answering questions. And then, I took 4 to 5 groups and I did that every single day. And within 3 months, I had 50 something clients. So I know for a fact, it works. And the Dream 100 list, I still have my Dream 100 list and I'm still working on it. So, but definitely works. And a lot of people ask this, and you probably have more than one, but is there a specific, success story that jumps out to you where you took someone through a sales transformation? It doesn't have to be SEO related or web design or anything like that, but just someone that, maybe you took them from where they were at and they could barely break 40, 50K or whatever. And then now they hit $1 million or they're going to 8 figures. There
is one SEO agency I'm working with right now. They're called Online Optimizers. I believe I think they have a partnership with another speaker at this conference. Is it Ganesh from? Is it Right Key Solution?
I know Ganesh.
So I've recently just started working with them, maybe with the last 8 weeks, to optimize their sales process. And they were struggling on both ends. They were struggling to get new meetings and they were struggling to close existing opportunities. And so the last conversation I had with the guys last Thursday, because we have a weekly call, was they've basically doubled their meeting rate. Now they're getting to the presentation stage. They've doubled their presentation rate because they didn't have that before. And now those deals are coming to the close stage. And so it's very interesting. If there's still people watching this, I guess what William was explaining to me before the call of like one of his tactics in sales is if he's on a sales call with a good fit prospect, he sends the invoice on the call to essentially get them to come in and purchase. That's what I just went through with the guys on Thursday. So already, like in their own words, they've said it's been night and day. And for me, when I see that type of reaction from a client, it's just that for me, that's more than any paycheck. It's like to actually see a genuine transformation in a short space of time. So I'm very excited for these guys. Like
Yeah.
they're one of
it's really seeing what you're teaching them affect not just work, but it's affecting their life, you know, versus it's just, oh, it worked, they made a couple of $1,000s. No, it's affecting their business, their life, you know, and everybody else that works for them too. So
yeah, and from my side, I'm invested in the sense of emotionally invested. Like I know exactly what their goals are. I'm going to make sure that they hit them as well. So it's like, it's not just a case of, oh yeah, here's another client I'm working with. It's like, if I'm working with someone, like I will do what it takes to hit their target. So yeah, just excited for that. And it's a recent story and another SEO agency.
let's see here real quick. So what is, you know, what's the, you know, this is the human part of it, but how important is relationship building in the sales process, particularly with agencies that are looking to scale? And do you have any tips or maybe some books that are really good, or a coach even that's really good to help you master that skill?
Just so I'm clear, is what stage maybe of the sales process are you referring to there? Is it at the very start? Is it about nurturing the relationship?
No, in this case, yeah, the very beginning, when you're trying to nurture that relationship.
I would say it depends, right? One thing I found very effective, and this you're able to execute this when you're very clear on who you want to target, is let's say you have your dream 100 and you're trying to reach out to them through cold methods and it's not really working. One thing that works very well is to try to meet them in person. And there's different ways you can do that. If you see that they're going to a certain conference, you can go to that conference and then make conversation with them. And you don't even have to say, look, I've tried to message you 7, 8, 9 times over email. It's so great to see you now. It's a case of actually just being a person so they can feel your energy. And I believe if someone has the tenacity to do those type of things, you will get results. So to give you an example, one deal I had to close when I was working with Twitter. It was a 100K ad revenue deal with an agency in London. And I was getting ghosted for like 2 or 3 weeks. And at Twitter at the time, we used to have our like Monday sales meetings, and every week your pipeline target was presented to the whole room. And so I had this big clog in my pipeline of like, okay, Alan, why is there 100K here? Why is it not closing? What are you going to do? And I just said, I had this feeling. I was like, okay, I'm going to fly to London, and yeah, I'm going to get this done. And so I booked a ticket to London, went over to their office unannounced, and met the person who was able to close the deal. So the takeaway from there is, if you can just try to get in front of the person physically, it when people see that level of effort, it's so rare. They're like, okay, this person is serious.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like if you read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. He talks a lot about that. He's like how I forget, but one of them, he literally showed up at this guy's office. He's a millionaire, and he just showed up at his office, and literally he wanted to work for him for free. And at first he wasn't going to give him an opportunity, then winds up giving him an opportunity just because he's seen the effort, you know. And it's very interesting. It definitely works. So
it does, but again, obviously this depends on the resources within the company. Do you have a budget to be able to support people to do that? But if you can do that, you are going to stand out, and they're going to appreciate it. And the one thing maybe to add with that, because I did say some businesses will have a budget objection to it. The key thing there is to figure out what is the potential LTV, the long-term value of that customer. If this customer could be with you for 3, 4, 5 years, then things like that are a small investment rather than an expense.
Yeah, start looking at things as an investment, not an expense. So, I mean, you've done millions in revenue. You've helped Fortune 500 companies, huge, if you will, enterprise type companies. As a leader who's actually driven millions, what are some of your personal habits or routines that you would contribute to your success in life and sales? Not just sales, but also in your life.
Yeah, I think goal setting and planning is fundamental to any success. Like I love the term or the quote. It's fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Mhm.
And I truly believe in that. So even within our office here, I have all our goals on the wall, all the revenue targets, all the activity targets to hit the goals, so that every day I'm like super clear on what I need to stay focused on and what I need to do to achieve the goals. And ultimately, eventually you'll hit them. Sometimes you don't get the timeline right, but if you're not clear on the target you're going to hit, you'll never hit the target. And I guess being in sales for the last number of years, that is just something that any successful salesperson has to have. And how that manifests then in terms of scheduling, you'll see it on, well, my calendar, sales reps calendar, of like time blocks. It's like, okay, 4 hours prospecting, 3 hours presentation calls, 1 hour drafting a proposal, whatever it is, but the week is planned ahead. There's no time for thinking about what to do. If you want to be a successful salesperson as well as a business person, you need to plan your weeks. It comes from planning your months, quarters, and years, but they're the foundational pieces.
Yeah, that's one of the things one of my mentees had told me. He said the number one thing that he really learned from me, he said, was because he actually, lived with me at one point, and I brought him over and he stayed with me, was that he thought, most people think this is like, as a business owner, you're work. And he said, what I noticed about you is you have a set period of time, and he's like, where you do a bunch of stuff that you have planned to do, and then after that you take it easy, or you do something with your family, or you go pray, or you go read a book or something of that nature. And then another set of time you're out there doing phone calls, or you're doing your YouTube, or you're doing your outreach. As like, it's one of the things I learned to keep, honestly, it keeps my sanity, is I block off my time. And I put everything on my calendar. So it definitely works. And it's definitely a life habit I think most people don't get. So,
yeah, and I'm with you with that, because if you don't have that, then chaos ensues. And then you get overwhelmed, you get burnt out. So you need some method to the madness.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you have a list of 20 million things to do, especially when you're running a business. And it's like, if you don't have everything blocked off, or you don't have no, if you will, calendar or life plan, then you wind up, you're going to look at everything you got to do, and you're going to get burnt out. And I've been down that road, and it's not fun. So back to, leadership and personal growth. What's some advice you give someone that's aspiring to be a sales professional? That maybe wants to follow in your footsteps and not just work for somebody, but eventually start their own consulting firm or their own agency?
I would say, firstly, you need to get very clear on why, and this isn't just with sales or becoming a business owner. It's why you're doing what you're doing. You need to get very specific on what drives you and get clear on where you want to go in life. And in terms of a book to maybe help with that transition, one of my favorites is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And he basically goes through the process of why did some people, and without this getting too dark, of like, why were some people able to survive during the Holocaust and others weren't. His thesis was that the people that were able to hang on were the ones who had a very strong why. And so if you go back to my story, like why I started in sales, it was because I wanted to be successful in business. And why did I want to be successful in business? I wanted to be successful in business to provide for my family, to buy my mother a house, all this stuff. So I have a very strong why that drives my actions. If you don't have that, you will give up. The reason you'll give up is because this stuff is hard. No one likes being rejected. And this is the arena that you're going to be entering. So get a strong why to begin with, because that'll be your shield.
Yeah. And then definitely, you know, there's some people I listen to that's like, that's really good is Eric Thomas, you know, Tony Robbins, who everybody knows. But Eric Thomas is, I love him to death. I read his stuff all the time. But he told you your why. You know, if your why is not big, you know, you're going to give up, because entrepreneurship is, you know, like for me, I'd also tell you, says, you know, not every entrepreneur needs a business. And you may need to come to a reality check that you might be a really good entrepreneur or a freelancer, but you suck as a business owner. And you may not want to do it because it's a lot harder than just being a freelancer. Being a freelancer is one thing. Having, you know, the families and other people depend on you in running an actual business is totally different. You know, and I never got that. I remember my boss before, he had probably good 80 something staff, and this is a healthcare. And he used to have, you know, a little bit of a drinking problem, stuff like that. And he got that under control eventually. But the thing is, it's like, you kind of understand why, because when you're having to deal with $100,000 quote unquote, you know, payroll every freaking few weeks, you know, then you begin to understand why. When then Obamacare rolled out, and then he has to deal with that. You know, it's one problem after another. It's really like Rocky said in that one movie. It's not a matter of how hard you can hit; it's a matter of how hard you can get hit and keep going. It's like, I have wanted to give up so many times, you know, as a quote unquote business owner. So it's 100% true, bro.
And that's what I say. I remind myself of this, and I tell this to other business owners I work with. It's like, you need to celebrate the wins, because the biggest difference, if you're someone who likes, let's say you're into sports, you played sports, at least with sports, right? You might win a match, whatever sport you're playing, and you get like an instant feedback maybe every few weeks. With business, you can go on the drive for months without getting a win. And so when you get that win, whatever it is, maybe it's you've closed a deal, you celebrate that. You celebrate that, because those moments, well, to begin with, are rare, and you need to instill within yourself of like, okay, reward yourself, because this stuff is hard. And that little kind of incentive over time will keep you doing the hard things that you need to do.
It's kind of, I mean, another thing I used to do, I don't do it too much anymore, because I mean, I'm not stressed out for one, but I used to come to where I live at now, because I live in the Philippines. But the thing is, I used to come here, I'd work, do training, and I'd do a bunch of videos, pre-record, and then I would obviously schedule everything out. And then I'd run away for a break, usually to the big city, Manila, go to the casino, stay at the casino, play, hang out with my friends that are up there. And then after I was done doing that and de-stressed, then I'd come back here. You know, that was, if you will, my reward per se. Or would go, you know, we have taken a family trip, then we go to different islands or whatever and just chill out and stuff like that. But it's very true, because it keeps you from burning out. And it's, you know, one of the things I'm doing right now, for instance, is, and this is probably, besides entrepreneurship, I'd say it's the toughest thing I've, you know, ever done before, and I've done it one other time, is weight loss and fitness. Because it's like, you'll do everything, you know, that when you first start, it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. When you first start, everything's going right. You're seeing the scale dropping. You're seeing you feeling better. Your clothes are this way. And I've done this before, because believe it or not, I used to be a certified personal trainer. And I worked at Gold's Gym. But the thing is, then you go through a month where it's like, I haven't lost nothing. The scale won't move. I told my wife the other day, I want to throw this thing out the damn window. And she's like, but then if you actually wait, and then because this says that, you know, this is generally the way it works, and you wait, and the scale didn't move, so let me take measurements. Because I tell people, oh, the scale don't lie. Bitch, that thing will lie to you. But what won't lie is body fat measurements and the tape measure. So, and I remember tape measure, do that, didn't lost no weight for like 2 months or a month, something like that. And I'd lost like 10 inches across everywhere I was, I measured my waist, everything else like that. And I was like, totally, you got to have measurements. You got to have things, that you can look at, because otherwise what winds up happening, if you're doing it, quote unquote, to, I want to lose weight, that's not a big enough why.
And then I see this in sales as well all the time. And then we get emotional, because it's like, why aren't sales happening? It's like, okay, well, let's take a step back. Okay, how many activities did we put into the system? How many cold calls? How many emails? How many DMs did we send? It's the inputs will lead to the outputs. And if you aren't measuring that to what you're saying, it's like you will get emotional. You'll throw the weighing scales out the window.
You say screw it, and they're like, my wife right now. I mean, here's one for you. Okay, my wife, she's on this with me too, because she's put on a little bit of weight. But the thing is, she hasn't had no damn rice. Now tell a Filipino not to have rice, or any Asian. That's sacrifice. And if you're not seeing progress, and your only thing is I want to lose weight, you'll say, fuck this, I'm not doing it. Ain't worth it. So
yeah, because the biggest difference in the culture in the countries we're living in right now, like rice is actually the staple. Everything else is the addition.
Yeah.
So
that's why I say it's like, so for me, it's like, you got to realize that's how I say, for me, one of the things I tell myself is like, you got to realize you're 47 years old. You did not get this way in a year, in 2 years, in 20 years. Okay. This was built over habits over time. So you kind of have to just, grind through it, suck it up, and just deal with it. And eventually, you'll get where you want to go, and realize, for example, I'd lost the weight before, and then I gained it back when I came to the Philippines. I came here skinny, by the way, which most people don't understand, but, so that's a little bit of ours, but the thing is, it's just a matter of, it relates right back to it. It's like, you got to have a big why. If your why is not big enough, and for example, you're doing, in my case, you're doing weight loss just because you want to see the scale move, or you want to lose weight, that's not big enough. It's got to be for your health. In this case, got to be for your health, got to be for yourself, got to be for you, because it makes you feel better. You feel better when you work out. It's like, when you work out, for me, I'm tired of shit, but then afterwards, I'm like, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great interview. I appreciate your time, Alan, and I look forward to meeting you at WOSCon. I'm definitely going to be picking your ears at WOSCon, or picking your brain, so could you invite the people, the audience, maybe that don't know you even, that will come to the World of Search, and just invite them to come to the World of Search, and that'll be about it.
Sure. Happy to. And looking forward to going to the Philippines. This will be my first time there. I am slightly worried about Philippine food. I've heard it's quite heavy, so I'm expecting I might put on a few. Yeah. I might put on a few. I might put on a few pounds as well, William.
Yeah, that's what happened with me. I mean, I came here, I was down to, when I say this now, you'd be like, well, that was still overweight, 230 pounds, but I used to be 389. Okay. But when I came here, I was 230, and then you're poor, no money, and then you get an agency, and you get options, and then you get fat. And you're sedentary. So now it's like, no, every day I wake up early, and I go work out, and I have a routine. So, yep, definitely. Alfredo says sales is something we can't hear enough within marketing. It's definitely the case. It doesn't matter if you're an SEO, it doesn't matter if you Google Ads or whatever. Sales is the lifeblood of that agency. So, once again, I just want to take this time to thank Alan. I also want to thank our sponsors, Search Atlas, ScaleNut, and Authority Solutions. And until next time, we'll see you again. Appreciate your time, Alan. You have a good one. Be blessed.
Likewise. Have a good one. Take care.
You too. Take care, guys.